Unless you've been hiding under a rock, you've probably heard a lot of chatter about there being a recession or there not being a recession. In this video, I'm gonna break down exactly what a recession is and what we, as investors, that's right, that means me and you, can do in this situation. If you're looking forward to hearing about that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. For those of you that are new here, my name is Forrest. I invest in stuff. I think that everybody should too, including you. Today's topic is an important one, talking about recessions. I'm actually on Investopedia. It's one of my favorite resources for getting investing information, answering every question. What are stocks? What are bonds? Or what's an ETF? All of those things. So we'll read this definition and then I'll actually apply the nuance in the real world. One of the interesting things that's actually happened right now is Jay Powell, who leads the Fed, has basically said that we're not in a recession, right? But there are some recession-like red flags. What does that actually mean? That's pretty weird, right? So Jay Powell is being Jay Powell, really nerdy guy. Unfortunately, economic policy has gotten really political this year, even though it shouldn't be, but it kind of always has been that way. When we look back in hindsight, we like to think that things aren't like that, but they are. So let's actually read the definition right now, looking on Investopedia. A recession is a significant, widespread, and prolonged downturn in economic activity. Because recessions often last 6 months or more, one popular rule of thumb is that 2 consecutive quarters of decline in a country's gross domestic product constitute a recession. So what exactly is GDP, right? A recession is based off of a reduction in GDP. Well, GDP stands for gross domestic product. It's actually just a measurement for our total economic output. There's a lot of nuance here, and this is really, really important when we think about what it actually means for the individual, like you and myself, and what it means for the country. The Fed, government, are almost wholly thinking about, when they say the economy, they're thinking about businesses. They're not really thinking about the individual. You see this in the policies that they enact. And this is where things get political after this, but the fact is that when we had the last crash, right, they bailed out the banks, they bailed out auto companies. In this last economic downturn, there was a stimulus check of $1,200, and that was the first, probably the last time that that's gonna happen. Even though it was a very small amount of money compared to the big bailouts of the businesses, it really shows, or it offered an example of what the government is actually really concerned with when they think about a reduction in economic output or the health of the economy. When the government is talking about the health of the economy, they're talking about the health of businesses. They're not really talking about people's ability to live normal lives. And on this channel, what we're doing and what we're interested in is understanding the macroeconomic environment so that one, we can certainly live an average life, but hopefully that you and I can do a little bit better than average, right? So GDP is just gross domestic product. It's a measure of our total economic output. Going further on, it says a downturn must be deep, pervasive, and lasting to qualify as a recession by NBER's definition. But these are retrospective judgment calls made by academics, not a mathematical formula designed to flag a recession as soon as one begins. So this is really, really critical, and I think this nuance is why we're officially not in a recession right now, right? So Jay Powell said that while there are some red flags in the economy, right, hiring has slowed down. We've seen some contraction, especially in tech, right? Advertising spend, I think, is down. Don't quote me on that. But we're seeing companies kind of prepare for uncertainty. One way to interpret, for example, Apple and Google reducing their hiring is that there is a reduction in the economy. Or you could just see that they're preparing for uncertainty. So companies are very, very forward-looking, and they can swivel that on a dime, right? If we get economic guidance that the economy is gonna be okay, then we can expect that hiring will pick up again. But right now, there's just so much uncertainty looking into the headwind, and I think that is why Google, Apple, and the tech industry, all of FANG, Meta, have started to reduce hiring right now. They just don't know where the economy is going to be. And what Jay Powell is basically saying is like, hey, everybody chill out, relax. We're seeing some weird headwinds due to the excessive amount of stimulus, due to inflation caused by that stimulus. Prices are going up. Real estate housing has increased in cost exponentially, but people are still employed, people are still working, and people are still spending money, which is the other side, right? If we were in a recession right now, if we saw unemployment get over 10%, again, something scary like that, it was really, really hard to get a job, which is not the case, right? It's really easy to get a job. The labor markets are very, very healthy right now. If you apply for a job, often companies are understaffed and unable to fill key roles. And because of that, the economy is in a place where it's still healthy because companies are still investing in human capital, hiring people, and thus having the opportunity to increase their revenue, which again has the opportunity to improve GDP. So we basically have a period of high inflation, but not necessarily a recession just yet. So here's what we actually do about it as investors, right? So I day trade pretty often. I'm gonna start posting more about that, but you can see some older videos, some of the trades that I did, made hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that. But you know, when you're looking at investing, let's just say long-term investing first. So long-term investing in a period of, you know, depressed economic activity or recessed economic activity, or even just looking into uncertainty. You want to invest in companies that have low amounts of debt and stable cash flow, right? Across really any industry. So think about a business. Retail is something that is often hit, but I think we have to be more nuanced in today's day and age. Amazon is an example of a retail entity that exploded during the pandemic. So even though we were in a weird global situation where people, you know, maybe wouldn't be buying things due to uncertainty of the macro environment, well, Amazon did very well. And I think the same could be said even in a recession, right? There are going to be some companies, due to the way that the world has changed, the economy is much more global. People want things. Things are, while CPI has increased,
stuff is cheaper.
Little odds, widgets. There's lots of little widgets and things that people will spend $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 on that are super duper cheap and will ship for free. So I think companies like Amazon will do well in a recession, or at least will be a little bit recession resistant. You have to also think about other businesses that would be okay type of period. Utility companies, all of your companies that are fundamental to people just living day-to-day life. So people are gonna cut back on luxury items for sure in a recessionary period. Companies that are low on debt, have a stabilized cash flow due to the line of business that they're in or the type of industry that they're in, are going to be great places. So why does low debt matter? Think about a period of uncertainty. Banks are willing to lend out money for cheap when the forward economic outlook is predictable, because they basically are underwriting or they're analyzing your ability to pay back that loan, and they're saying, oh, okay, well, we're certain that over the next 10, 15, 30 years, you're going to be able to pay back this loan. If the future is uncertain, now the bank is taking on more risk, which means debt is more expensive. So if you're a company with a lot of debt in a period of uncertainty and you need to refinance that debt, or you need to get more debt, which you probably will if you're a high debt entity, if you're a new business, if you're a speculative business, right, and you have a lot of debt and you're financing your business, which makes no money yet, which is a lot of tech companies make no money for years and years and years, and then eventually they go public trying to become profitable. If you're playing that game or that part of entrepreneurship, well, it's gonna be more expensive for you to do business. Borrowing money is gonna cost more. And so if you're investing in a company like that, it's gonna be more risky for you, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. Invest in companies that are lower on debt, that are profitable. They're not necessarily going to grow as fast as speculative investments might, but at the same time, speculative investments are also losing value faster during periods of economic uncertainty than, you know, your kind of blue chip, stable companies will. There's always a dichotomy. People will often be very, very short-sighted, and short-sighted doesn't just have to be a few months. Short-sighted could be 6 or 7 years, right? You could have your portfolio could do an insane amount of growth or expansion in a 7-year period, and then, you know, you hit your first global kind of recession period where there's economic roughness, and lo and behold, you don't look so smart anymore. And a lot of people get shaken out by that. So you do need to diversify in the long run, or just accept that risk. Just accept that by being in purely speculative or more speculative investments, that you're gonna take the hit first when there are economic headwinds. That's just a case. So you'll get the gains when they come, and hopefully you realize those gains intelligently before things pull back. So kind of to recap this, a recession really is, the general rule of thumb is 2 quarters of severely depressed economic activity, but it's not a science. It's literally not a science. They look for severe cuts across the economy in its entirety. So increased inflation, decreased job growth, all of these different things have to happen at once. So to recap this, a recession is a significant, pervasive, and persistent decline in economic activity. Very often, governments across the world will try to use monetary policy to reduce the effects of inflation, right? Increasing interest rates, slowing down the expansion of debt, which expands very quickly when rates are low, right? Basically, money's free, so people borrow a lot of it. So they try to slow that down. They try to reduce inflation, which can cause recession to run away, can impact unemployment. But generally, it is not a science. It requires a lot of things happening at once. It basically is one of those things where it's like, oh, we're obviously in a recession, versus like, well, there's some trouble amok in our economy. So things are just a little wacky. That's not a recession. The economy has to truly be hurt across the board, straight up beat up. We're just not there yet today. We might be, I think, and this might be the more interesting part of the video for you, watching this from an investing perspective.
I think that there's still more downside in the market. I don't think we've hit our bottom yet.
If you look at 2008 and kind of what that that graph looked like, the articles, what people were talking about. Companies like Amazon, Tesla, Apple were propping the market up, and we're seeing that right now. And then they held it up for a little bit, and then they fell off a cliff. We just had a ton of bad earnings, and the market got bought up. So the market can be irrational longer than you can be solvent, but at the same time, you still have to be rational, right? We have to be rational as investors, and understanding that our timing might be off. One of the ways that we can address that is by either just buying stocks in general, buying longer dated options, right? Leaps. I'm a day trader, so I trade purely options at this point, but you can buy leaps, right? Give yourself a little bit of cushion on your thesis, or just not trade, right? One of the things you can do is wait for confirmation. One of the things I tell everybody that is new to trading is wait for confirmation. Don't try to capture the whole move. It's a fool's errand. It'd be like trying to put a bucket out right when it starts raining. Or you can just wait till it's raining and you know it's raining, then put your bucket out. There's no need to, I guess that's not a good analogy because there's no risk to putting your bucket out early. But when you're trading, there is risk to putting the bucket out early. Imagine if you put your bucket out too early, somebody comes and punches you in the face. You don't want to do that. Just wait till it starts raining, put the bucket out. You don't get punched in the face, and you'll still get water in the bucket. That's what we're trying to do as traders and investors, is wait for confirmation. We'll catch enough of the move, and that is the number one reason why people lose money, by the way, is they try to predict the future instead of just reading what's happening right now and trading based off of what's happening right now. They try to be too forward-looking. So, sounds cliche, really hard to do, really hard to do. I'm still working on it. But that's it for this video. Yeah, hopefully you learned something. Go ahead, leave your questions down in the comments. I appreciate you. Subscribe to my channel. What is today? I'm filming this on July 30th. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subs by the end of the year. No BS in you guys. If stuff's hard, go through my channel. I've been playing around with the style, the channel and all that, and my creative angle, but at the heart of it all, I think you see, regardless of what I'm wearing or which camera I'm talking into, I just want to help people learn about finances. And so if you like my content, please subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'll try to respond to every single comment. It's something that's super important to me. So leave a comment, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, subscribe. See you in the next one.